On this week's Vaticano, we follow the events of the Jubilee for the sick and disabled. The Vatican hosts experts on leprosy, working to eradicate a disease that still afflicts tens of thousands of people every year. Pope Francis pays a visit to the headquarters of the World Food Program, and a worldwide Rosary Relay passes through the Eternal City. All this and much more now on Vaticano. From June the 10th to the 12th, the Catholic Church celebrated one of the most awaited and significant moments of this Holy Year of Mercy, the Jubilee for the sick and persons with disabilities. For 3 days, Rome was the scene of numerous initiatives dedicated to sick and disabled pilgrims and those who joined them. In addition to the pilgrimage through the Holy Door, in some churches in the city center, the participants were able to attend Eucharistic adoration, receive the sacrament of reconciliation, and be part of various catecheses about mercy, given in several languages.
We came to Rome primarily because of my son, Tommy, who has Down syndrome. We really wanted to participate in the Jubilee to ask for grace for our family. It was really amazing. We took 3 of our children, including my son Tommy, through the holy doors, and it was a moment of grace. We were very grateful to go through the doors of mercy with him.
And then this morning, obviously, we had the catechesis with the Archbishop, and that was very moving. He told the story of the Good Samaritan as a model of mercy, so it's been very nice so far.
But that wasn't all. On Saturday morning, a group of people with disabilities met with Pope Francis in the Paul VI Hall. During the meeting, promoted by the Italian Episcopal Conference, the Pope set aside the official speech and answered questions made by the sick, volunteers, and priests. Throughout the conversation, the Pope stressed again and again the wealth that is hidden in weakness and fragility.
Each one of us has a way of knowing things that is different. One known in one way, another in another way, but all can know God. Come, come, she is courageous. She isn't afraid, she risks. She knows that differences are a richness. She risks, and she has given us a lesson. She will never be discriminated against. She knows how to defend herself on her own. See, Serena, I don't know if I've answered your question. In the parish, in the Mass, in all the sacraments, all are equal, because all have the same Lord, Jesus, and the same Mother, Our Lady.
Also, the Pope urged the Christian community to achieve active participation of people with disabilities in the life of parishes.
What
the priest must do, helped by the laity, by catechists, by many, many people, is to help all to understand the faith, to understand love, to understand how to be friends, to understand differences, to understand how things are complementary. One can give one thing, and another can give another. I think that today many good things are done in the Church's pastoral care. Many good things in catechesis, in the liturgy, in charity with the sick. Many good things. But there is something that must be done more, also by priests, and also by the laity. But priests especially must do more. The apostolate of the ear, to listen.
Ascoltare.
At the end of the audience, Pope Francis came to greet those present and received some gifts from them. Among these, he highlighted a drawing by Mariana Caprioletti, an Italian artist with disabilities. This drawing is her reinterpretation of the White Crucifixion from Chagall, in which Mariana replaced the scenes of anti-Semitic persecution in the original version with some dramatic scenes of current immigration. This is one more example of the wealth found in a different view of reality. At 6 in the afternoon of that same day, it was time to celebrate mercy. In the gardens of Castel Sant'Angelo, pilgrims attended the welcoming party held under the theme Beyond Limits. For 2 hours, people with functional disability shared time with well-known Italian artists, featuring music, culture, and art. In addition, the pilgrims visited the 7 stands of mercy, where volunteer associations in different pastoral realities shared experiences of evangelization marked by suffering and illness.
We have a restaurant in Trastevere where work 12 disabled people. And also we work for the catechesis of the disabled, and also with the painting and the laboratories of art.
Kiko's band is a way of helping the core members, as they call the handicapped people, express themselves musically within a group. So they're, the assistants lead the songs, and they follow along, and they do an individual performance every now and then.
On Sunday, June the 12th, the third and last day of the Jubilee dedicated to the sick, Pope Francis celebrated the Holy Mass in St. Peter's Square. During events with the Pope, the sick always occupy the front rows as a sign of love, closeness, and mercy to them. On this occasion, the Holy Father wanted to emphasize this feeling of love and wanted them to become active protagonists in the liturgical celebration. They participated in the choir, readings, the psalm, prayers of the faithful, and the gospel reading was acted out in front of the altar by a group of mentally disabled. In his homily, the Pope condemned social pressure that proposes to hide or even eliminate those who do not correspond to a set of socially accepted norms.
It is thought that sick or disabled persons cannot be happy, since they cannot live the lifestyle held up by the culture of pleasure and entertainment. In an age when care for one's body has become an obsession and a big business, anything imperfect has to be hidden away, since it threatens the happiness and serenity of the privileged few and endangers the dominant model. Such persons should best be kept apart, in some enclosure, even a gilded one, or in islands of pietism or social welfare, so that they do not hold back the pace of a false well-being.
For the Pope, the world will be a better place only when solidarity between human beings, acceptance, and mutual respect prevail in the heart of every human society.
The way we experience illness and disability is an index of the love we are ready to offer. The way we face suffering and limitation is the measure of our freedom to give meaning to life's experiences, even when they strike us as meaningless and unmerited. Let us not be disturbed, then, by these tribulations. We know that in weakness we can become strong, and receive the grace to fill up what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ for His body, the Church.
At the end of the ceremony, the Pope prayed the Angelus with the faithful gathered in the square. Before starting, the Holy Father made an appeal to the international community to take decisive action against child slavery. It was the World Day dedicated to the fight against this scourge.
Altogether, let's renew our efforts to remove the causes of this modern slavery, depriving millions of children of certain fundamental rights and exposing them to serious dangers. In the world today, there are so many child slaves.
According to the International Labor Organization, more than 168 million children work worldwide, and more than half of them do it in conditions that negatively affect their health, safety, and development. After asking for the intercession of the Virgin Mary, the Holy Father greeted hundreds of sick and disabled people from many countries of different ages and professions. Here in Rome, the memory of one of the oldest diseases known to man is now very distant. In fact, here and across the West, Hansen's disease, commonly known as leprosy, has been almost completely eradicated. But that's not the case everywhere.
It become a forgotten disease.
Where Father John Twy works as a priest and physician's assistant in Vietnam, he's still dealing with cases of leprosy.
The disease affects the people's skin and their sensibility, and as a result, it also affects the nerve system. And it destroys their fingers, their ability, they become disabled. So, and very often it changes their face, their capacity to look, to see, and they lost their eyes, their arms. So usually they easily can get being discriminated, and people get away from them, and also the history of the disease that was considered very contagious. That was why people usually rejected them, as we have seen in the Bible.
And that's why Father and many others fighting hardest to combat it, world experts, caregivers, and even survivors, gathered at Rome's Augustinianum Institute on June the 9th and the 10th. They were discussing the prevention and treatment of Hansen's disease, but also discrimination, human rights, and dignity of all who suffer from it. Mr. Vagavatali Narsapa was participating from India. He once had leprosy himself.
My personal experience is I have diagnosed as my age 9 years old. And I born in a small village, remote village in Karnataka state. And my family was isolated me, 9 years old, my age 9 years old. My father took me to a leprosy hospital and left me there. And that time very, very high stigma discrimination. So after treatment I went to my home, but my family would not take into me back because of the stigma. I came back again where I stay in rehabilitation home. I recognized that my true family is who are affected by leprosy, those my true family. So I am continuing in the hospital rehabilitation home. Leprosy causes a disability, that is a problem, that create a discrimination and stigma. That is main problem. Early diagnosis, early treatment without disability, there is no problem about leprosy. Leprosy is a common disease. We are not a beggars. We can fight for our rights, equal opportunity, equal participation, equal job.
Narsapa and more than 800,000 other people living today have or have had leprosy. India, Brazil, Indonesia, Nepal, and the Republic of Congo are some of the places where the bacteria that causes it are most frequently found today.
Now, we have 125,000 new cases every year from India. So that is one of the major concerns. And say 10% of children, that means you have quite a number, more than 12,500 children with leprosy every year, and out of that 10% with disability, children with disability, young girls, young boys with disability. That means their future is blocked. People in the city has got access to health facility, either private or government, but in the rural area there is no facility. People have to walk kilometers. So there is the problem, because right diagnosis of leprosy is not available in the available health system. It is so simple to treat. Once identified, 6 months to 1 year treatment, it is so very simple to treat. But early identification is the problem, and that is the solution. So if you are able to identify early, then there is no deformity, there is no further damage. So with treatment, we can stop and cure completely.
And that's another reason this conference was held, to raise awareness.
Che sono I nostri fratelli, le nostre sorelle.
They are our brothers, they are our sisters, and so we are all called, each according to his level with his responsibilities, to do everything to help them, to meet them, respect especially their dignity, seek to have them reinserted, re-recognized, and reintegrated.
Fare in modo che vengano reinseriti, reintegrati, riconosciuti.
On Monday, June the 13th, Pope Francis visited the Rome-based United Nations World Food Program, becoming the first pontiff to visit their facilities. At his arrival, the Holy Father prayed at the memorial wall, which he later remembered as representing the sacrifice made by those members of the organization who gave their lives so that in complex and difficult situations, others would not go hungry. In his address during the annual session of WFP's Executive Board, the Holy Father spoke of the problem of hunger in the world.
Que hoy, en pleno siglo XXI,
the fact that today, well into the 21st century, so many people suffer from this scourge is due to a selfish and wrong distribution of resources, to the merchandising of food. The earth, abused and exploited, continues in many parts of the world to yield its fruits, offering us the best of itself. The faces of the starving remind us that we have foiled its purposes.
The Holy Father also denounced how we have a growing tendency to look at the tragedies of others as natural occurrences.
Today we cannot be satisfied simply with being aware of the problems faced by many of our brothers and sisters. Statistics do not satisfy us. It is not enough to offer broad reflections or engage in endless discussion, constantly repeating things everyone knows. We need to denaturalize extreme poverty, to stop seeing it as a statistic rather than a reality. Why? Because poverty has a face. It has the face of a child. It has the face of a family. It has the face of people, young and old. It has the face of widespread unemployment and lack of opportunity. It has the face of forced migrations and of empty or destroyed homes.
The Pontiff also highlighted the commitment of the Church in the face of this reality.
The Catholic Church, in fidelity to her mission, wishes to cooperate with every initiative that defends and protects the dignity of persons, especially of those whose rights are violated. In implementing this urgent priority of zero hunger, I assure you of our complete support and encouragement for the efforts in course.
On Saturday, June the 11th, Pope Francis received Lidia Guerrero, the mother of Argentinian Victor Saldaño, sentenced to death in the United States. Saldaño, 44 years old, is imprisoned in Huntsville Prison in Texas for robbery and the murder of Paul King in 1995. According to his lawyers, the legal process was developed with anomalies. The last time she saw her son was in November 2014, and this meeting with the Pope gave her hope. The Pope asked her to keep praying. Also, the same Saturday, the Pope met with participants in the summer course of the Vatican Observatory. Young students of this 15th edition of the course, organized by the Jesuit fathers, come from different countries and are studying the existence of water in the solar system. In his speech, the Pope noted the contribution of the Vatican Observatory, founded by Pope Leo XIII 125 years ago.
Over the years, the observatory has sought to fulfill its original purpose by employing new scientific instruments, as well as the tools of dialogue and cooperation with other centers of research.
Also, the Holy Father reminded them of the importance of being united by the desire to discover the truth about how this marvelous universe operates. And in this, we draw ever closer to the Creator. On Thursday, June the 9th, the Holy Father received the leaders of the medical associations of Spain, Portugal, and Latin America in the Clementine Hall of the Apostolic Palace. The Pope reminded them that health is a precious gift and asked them to practice true compassion with their patients.
The doctor's identity and commitment depends not only on scientific knowledge and technical competence, but principally on the attitude of compassion and mercy towards those who suffer in body and in spirit. Compassion does not mean pity, it means suffering with.
He also urged them not to yield to those who hide behind an alleged compassion to justify and approve euthanasia, because it means the triumph of selfishness, of this throwaway culture that does not respect the dignity of the person. The Pope said that he likes to bless doctors' hands as a sign, to recognize this compassion that becomes the caress of health. During the general audience on Wednesday, June the 15th, Pope Francis focused his catechesis on the story of the blind man on the road to Jericho, which emphasizes that when Jesus passes, there is liberation and salvation.
El Evangelio que escuchamos,
The gospel we heard shows us a Jesus that, as he comes closer to Jericho, restores sight to a blind man who was begging on the side of the path. The figure of this man sadly represents so many people who still today suffer discrimination and rejection by others. It's noteworthy that this marginalized person at the doors of Jericho, the biblical city that symbolizes the entrance to the Promised Land, rather than finding compassion and help of neighbor, as asked by the law that God gave his people, he finds instead insensitivity and rejection. As then, also now, indifference and hostility cause blindness and deafness, which impede perception of the necessities of our brothers and recognition of the presence of the Lord in them. In contrast with this attitude, Jesus, who passes by, is not indifferent to the cry of the blind man, who, moved by faith, wishes to meet him and invoke his help. The Lord, as a humble servant, listens to the plea of the blind man and gives him back his sight. Thanks to his faith, the man sees, but most of all, he experiences the love of God that in Jesus makes himself a servant to all of us sinners.
De todos nosotros pecadores.
Every evening during the Jubilee of Mercy, there's a rosary prayed in front of the statue of St. Peter in the Vatican. The initiative is being overseen by the Pontifical Council for the New Evangelization and is led by various parishes in Rome, religious institutes, and communities. There's a strong connection between Our Lady and Mercy, as she is the Mother of God and Mother of Mercy. June 3rd, the final day of the Jubilee for priests, coincided with the annual Global Rosary Relay. The prayer is organized each year by the World Priest Movement on the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Marian Mulhall, the founder and CEO of World Priest and the Rosary Relay, wanted to participate in the prayer in Rome.
The Rosary Relay is a very, very special global event which takes place once a year. It takes place on the Feast of the Sacred Heart, and it has been growing and growing, as this year is the 7th year, and we have well over 100 locations in over 50 countries participating.
The special event started early on the morning of June the 3rd in Siberia with the Joyful Mysteries, then moved to the underground church in China, then to Australia, India, Eastern Europe, and westward, ending in Guatemala at midnight with the Sorrowful Mysteries. Each group was allocated the time for a prayer, so the whole day there were continuous rosary prayers for priests.
Priests need our prayers so much. They depend on the laity. I mean, they're there to serve us like 24/7 through all the sacraments, and they're incredibly special.
The World Priest Initiative was established to support priesthood worldwide.
World Priest was formed in response to a personal vocation which I received back quite a number of years ago to promote the priesthood. So I have continued to do that for nearly 21 years now. But basically World Priests exist to uphold the dignity, the beauty and the gift of the priesthood of Jesus Christ to humanity.
The Holy Father sent his cordial greetings and his apostolic blessing to all those who took part in the 24-hour Rosary Relay for priests. He assured his prayers that our Blessed Mother may always guide and protect priests. On Saturday, May the 28th, about 400 children from Italy's southern region of Calabria arrived at the Vatican's train station to meet Pope Francis. The event was organized by the Pontifical Council for Culture in collaboration with the Italian State Railways. Father Laurent Massas, one of the organizers of the initiative, explains the origins of the project.
Every year, the state railways make a train available that I make depart from wherever I want, and in a day it comes here to the Vatican and then returns. And I put 500 children in it, trying to bring them from different areas of Italy. This year it was Calabria, with a different theme. 2 years ago, for example, there was the academic dispersion. Children go to school when the parents tell them, "You've been bad. Tomorrow you're going to school." Then last year there were children of detainees, and this year the theme was immigrants.
This year was the 4th edition of the Children's Train. This year's theme was Brought by Waves, chosen to emphasize the mortal danger migrants face and their hope in the promise of a better future. Some of the children are immigrants who arrived only recently to Italy.
Some arrived just 5 days before the event. Children who have crossed the Mediterranean and some who have lost their family members during the trip.
Pope Francis welcomed the children into the Paul VI Hall. The young travelers heard the words of the Pope with empathy and attention and presented their talents and gifts to him.
And this? The waves. And what are the waves? Tell me a little. And the waves, what do waves do? They move. They move, and do they push you forward? Yes. And are they also dangerous, the waves? What can they do to you? They can kill you. Say it loudly. They can kill people. If you are still, the waves pull you away. But if you go forward with a bit of strength, they take you forward. Ah, good, huh?
Children wrote many letters to the Pope. In one of them, a girl cited the words of Pope Francis, "Foreign children are not a danger, but they are in danger." During the dialogue with the children, the Holy Father told them a very touching story.
The Pope in that moment asked for the life vest that a lifeguard had used to try to save a 6-year-old child who was sinking, but unfortunately he wasn't able to do so. And he told the Holy Father last Wednesday, "Here is the life vest. I couldn't do it and my heart is broken." You could see that the Pope's heart was broken too.
Pope Francis invited children to give a name to the little girl, the name they each wished in their hearts. "She's in heaven, she's looking on us," he said. One of the characteristics of the pontificate of Pope Francis is his constant appeals to counter this migratory crisis. He told the children they're brave and have to know the truth.